Welcome to the MIT IT Innovation Program podcast. This is a repository of insights by thought leaders and practitioners of innovation where they speak about their views, insights, and experiences. Come join us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Why Innovation Needs Storytelling. I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker and innovator, Ms. Meeta Malhotra, founder, The Hard Copy. Meeta is a strategist, storyteller, and serial entrepreneur. She was one of the two partners at Ray+Keshavan, which is India's leading brand and design consultancy, acquired by WPP in 2006. She then co-founded Kinetic Glue, a SaaS enterprise collaboration platform, which was acquired by Fortune 500 company BMC Software in 2013. She launched her current venture, The Hard Copy, in December 2019. The Hard Copy is an online publication that chronicles the design and innovation ecosystem in India. Through her career, Meeta has helped to create industry-leading brands like Airtel, Kotak, Thoughtworks, Indian School of Business, Ashoka University, and Vistara Airlines. She is also an angel investor with companies like YourStory and LetsVenture in her portfolio. Before we proceed to listen to Meeta, I have a few updates to share about the session and the MIT ID Innovation Program webinar platform. For those who are joining us for the first time today, I'd like to inform you that MIT stands for the 4-decade-old Maharashtra Institute of Technology. ID stands for MIT's 15-year-old Pioneering Institute of Design. MIT ID's one-year innovation program focuses on the 4 pillars of design, business, technology, and humanities. On behalf of Professor Harshit Desai, head of the innovation program, and the core team, we are grateful to be amongst you all hosting the session today. Today's webinar will have our guest speaker share her insights for the first half hour, followed by questions facilitated by me in the latter half hour. Please do read the chat for other pointers that have been shared. This is our 25th industry interaction this season, and I, Priya Dhawan, Head of Collaborations, Branding and Outreach for the MIT ID Innovation Program, welcome you all once again to this thoughtfully curated innovation journey. So warm welcome once again, Meeta. Over to you.
Thank you, Priya, and hi to everyone who's online and made the time to attend this. It's very nice to be here, and I hope that whatever I have to say in the next 30 minutes will be helpful for all the innovators who are online. So let's get started, because I want to talk about something that's very close to my heart, the fact that innovation needs storytelling. There's a very famous quote that all of you will have heard, right? It's by the French novelist and poet Victor Hugo, who says that nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. Now, that's absolutely true, but I think that in current times, it needs a small amendment. Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come, but I can tell you that a badly told story can really slow it down. In the course of my career over these last couple of decades, I've been privileged enough to, have a ringside seat when some great ideas have been presented to investors, to partners. And I've seen the difference that a good story versus a bad story makes. And I've seen how tragic it is that many great ideas get shot down because they just can't garner enough enthusiasm. They were presented badly and they just didn't manage to inspire the people they needed to. So today's session is going to be just about a few examples. We can't really learn how to do storytelling in half an hour, but I want to be able to convince you of the importance of it. And if you leave this session thinking that, you know what, I'm going to get better at storytelling, then I think my objective will have been achieved. So let's start here. One would say that if you say the word innovation to even a 4th standard child, this is the image that will come to their mind, right? It will be Thomas Edison and the light bulb. Even now, the icon that is used to cue innovation around the world is the light bulb. When you see the light bulb, you think, innovation, idea. Now, what is less known about Edison, and I would really urge all of you to read a little bit more about this, is that he was actually a masterful storyteller. So, there's a lot of ambiguity about who actually first invented the light bulb. Many people were working on it. Edison's patents were actually rejected a few times. But finally, he is the one who's gone down in history as the inventor of the light bulb and the phonograph and other things, because he was the one who was able to rally everyone around his idea. He was able to carry with him his competitor, Joseph Swan, who had actually been working on the bulb for much longer than Edison had. He was able to bring to the table investors like JP Morgan, who actually invested in the company that took the electric bulb into mass scale manufacturing. And just look at this one sentence, right? This is so evocative. How he presents the story of the light bulb to everybody. We shall make electricity so cheap that only the rich will light candles. Now that just fires your imagination. Think back, this is the 1800s. And think of the masses of people who, were living in quite dreadful conditions, had to light candles to do anything once the sun went down. And think what this would have evoked in minds and hearts at that time. From Edison, let's cut to more current times, and perhaps somebody you're all more familiar with, right? Let's talk about Bezos. Now, there is no dispute at all that Bezos is, again, a master at storytelling. And Amazon has used this in not one, but in many different ways, right? He himself has said, you can have the best technology, you can have the best business model, but if the storytelling isn't amazing, it won't matter. Now, how does Amazon use storytelling? Many different ways, right? The first, which you can see on the screen also, is of course his much lauded letter to shareholders. Everybody waits for it because it's masterfully written. It is a wonderful narrative that ties together what Amazon has done and where it's going. And think of this, look at the date on that quote. It's 1997. And that's the time, look at how he presented the idea of online commerce, which was then still, not as widespread as it is today. And he said that online commerce saves customers money and precious time, but that is today. Tomorrow, it will accelerate the very process of discovery. Telling a story about online commerce that paints this very exciting, future-looking picture for their shareholders. You know, of course, that Amazon, didn't make profits for the longest time, and everybody knows that business side of the story. And he was able to do it because he is a master of the story. Another very interesting thing about Amazon is the fact that if the leadership wants to present a new idea, a new way of doing things, any innovation to Jeff Bezos and the other leaders, they can't make a presentation. They can't put up PowerPoint slides. They have to write what is almost sometimes a 5-6 page memo in advance. This is strictly long form, no bullet points. And they have to craft the story of what that innovation will bring to the company. And sometimes, people have said that meetings of senior leaders consist only of them sitting around the table and reading these 6-page memos quietly and then discussing them later. So again, the thesis here is that if you are not able to tell the story about your idea in a compelling way, then it's very likely that the implementation of that idea will falter, will not go through, and this is at least the first gate that you must pass. So why are we saying this? Why does Bezos and Edison and Buffett and so many, Musk, all of these great leaders, why are they so hung up on this idea of storytelling? Why does every idea need a story? And it isn't just a sort of pet theory that people have, right? The reason, the underlying foundation to this is the fact that stories have a very important function. Stories are the best magnifiers. When you tell a story, you do two things. If you tell it well, of course. You convince people who are in the room listening to your story at that point of time, and you make it easy for them to understand and disseminate your story further, right? If they go out of the room thinking, okay, I'm not sure what I heard, I'm not sure how that's going to work, then it already becomes a problem for them to talk about it further. Good storytelling addresses that problem. Now, why, again, let's keep going down the why route. Why do stories act like magnifiers? And the reason is actually deeply rooted in neuroscience. It's all in the brain. There are many different ways that stories light up your neural pathways. And I won't go into all of them here. Again, this is just a pointer. Do read up about what happens to your brain when you are engaged in listening to a good story, right? A couple of things. One, the hormone oxytocin is produced. And as all of you know, oxytocin is the happy hormone. It motivates cooperation. It creates empathy. You want to be part of a team, and you are in a natural frame of mind to agree with the person who is talking to you. The other thing that happens is a process called neural coupling. As the storyteller inspires you, and you start to see yourself not as just a passive listener, but as somebody who has a role to play in that story that's being told, your brain goes into this mode where it actually starts to reinforce that. It starts to bring up experiences from your life, which reinforce the fact that you are part of this story. And when that happens, it's a very powerful motivation for you personally to make sure that that story comes to life, that story goes forward. And so you can understand that if you're listening to a story from an innovator and it's told well, at the end of the session, you almost have a vested interest in making sure that story goes forward. Right? So it's all in the brain, and scientifically proven that good stories will produce the reactions that you want them to. I want to point out one really important thing, and particularly in India, we see this happening a lot. Oh, sorry. Okay. If I haven't reinforced my point enough, here's one more point, which is that, of course, it's always been important for business. But today, given really short attention spans, given the fact that we have so much information to process, storytelling is even more important than it was before, and will continue to be as we reel under this information overload. But this is the point that I was making earlier. Let me come back to it. When we say, you have to learn a good story, I have seen that people mistake this for thinking that they have to be long-winded. And I have sat in presentations where people have just gone on and on and on. And that's not storytelling. Storytelling is not about verbosity, and it's not about fluff. It's not about using jargon. It's not about using long words or complex phrases. All of you know, you read, you watch Netflix, you know what keeps you engaged, right? All of that is storytelling. So storytelling has to be taught, and it has to be engaging and keep the audience's interest from start to finish. So please don't think that when you start to think about storytelling, about your idea, that you need to make it long and verbose, because you will just end up being boring. There are actually 3 parts to innovation storytelling, right? And we'll touch upon them very briefly. First of all, your story has to have the why. And when you talk about the why is your idea important? Why is it relevant? Why is the time for your idea now? It must have an element of surprise and it must inspire. It can't be mundane and predictable. So you have to find a way to frame your idea in a way that it inspires your audience. The second thing that innovation storytelling must do is that it must answer the question, what? What are the steps that are needed to take this idea into execution? I mean, it depends, of course, at what stage and what audience you're doing your storytelling to. But it's very important here that you at least are able to sketch out what steps are needed to make your idea viable. And you're not just talking about innovation, at a 30,000 foot level. And then finally, the how. How will you and your audience change the status quo together? And let me spend an extra minute on this, because this is what most people get wrong. So most people will go on about features, about products. They will never talk, and it will be about me, my idea, and the audience could be investors today, it could be employees tomorrow, it could be academia the third day, but your story doesn't change. And that's wrong, right? I mean, you have to tweak so that the bulk of your story will not change, but you have to tweak so that your audience is also part of your story and they're also part of the vision, and you are carrying them with you on this mission to change something and change the status quo through innovation. What I'd like to do now, we have about 10, 12 minutes left, is I want to take this time to actually tell you some stories, right? I want to tell you 3 stories, and I want to tell you these stories from my own experience. They're just 3 tiny little examples, but what I found is that it's, when you talk about Bezos and you talk about Edison and you talk about these massive, legendary global figures, it can be a bit out of context, right? I mean, let's think about our own contexts and how has innovation storytelling worked in those. And I wanted to share these with you because all 3 of them are from my own personal experience. They're quite varied, but I hope they will be interesting. So the first one, and this is a few years ago, actually, I was involved in a consulting project with a very large firm called Genpact. Most of you should have heard of it. It's a large IT consulting firm, many offices, millions of dollars, hundreds and thousands of employees across cultures and nationalities. And the project was that Genpact wanted to reframe their corporate values, right? And they wanted these reframed corporate values to be then cascaded through these hundreds and thousands of employees, from Chile to the US to Europe to the Philippines to India, and people doing work. You had junior employees, 22, 23 years old, to senior employees, and all of them had to engage with and understand these values. And what we did as a team with them, of course, was to work on storytelling for these values. Now, if you're looking at this poster, right, I'm sure many of you, without even knowing what the values were, are identifying with the images that you see. You're already looking at those images and saying, oh yeah, I know this. This is from a story from my childhood. So for example, let's take the value of innovation, which was one of their keystone values. And to explain the idea of innovation and what we meant by innovation, we used the fable of the crow that finds a half full water jug on a hot summer day but can't reach it, so drops pebbles one by one into the water jug, brings the water level up and drinks. You can see that, it's a pink crow, so okay, a pink bird on the bottom of the poster. And this was a story that resonated with every culture in some form or the other. It is there in every culture. And it also helped us to bring home the message that innovation is not a value that is only restricted to leadership or to the C-suite. It is a value that has to be embodied even by the most junior employee. No matter what role you are in, you can still be innovative. And that was the whole purpose of the exercise. There is the other, you can see the birds flying in V formation. Again, a story that is widely told and quoted through the world. And we use this to illustrate the value of teamwork. And we said that when teams work together, that when birds fly in V formation, the airstream that is created by the bird in front helps the bird at the back actually fly without too much difficulty. And that's how migratory birds are able to cover thousands of miles every year. And we use this little story to illustrate how teamwork should work. And of course, then we went much deeper into every value. But the idea of storytelling as a universal theme across countries and locations was a very effective one. Here's my second story. And these stories are very important because in India, we really do need a lot of low-cost innovation, right? And this story is about an NGO called Udhyam. They do some wonderful work. They were founded by the ex-Flipkart CPO, Mekin Maheshwari. They've done a lot of great work in education, but this particular story focuses on their Vyapar program. Now, their Vyapar program works with small micro entrepreneurs, right? People they call Vyaparis. So this could be the person who has the small chai shop. This could be the person who has the little laundry cart, the press wala, all of these tiny micro entrepreneurs. And Udhyam is focused on figuring out how they can help all of them make a more sustainable living. And when they started this organization, they took up, we'll talk about one of their projects today, which was to work with your, you've all seen them in your neighborhood. You've seen these carts, these presswala carts, where the person will have an iron box, a heavy iron box, which is filled with coal. And they iron your clothes, and they're usually, outside densely populated buildings. Now, Udhyam figured that there was a lot of problem with the current model. First of all, it was using coal, which is not sustainable. It was bad for their health, and it was quite difficult for them. The income was limited because it was quite difficult for them to use that heavy iron to do a lot of ironing. And Udhyam had hit upon a great idea, which is, if you look at the picture, you can see it. It's actually a gas-powered ironing box, which is much lighter. It's LPG powered actually, and it's much lighter. It's much more sustainable. It's cheaper. Now, what did Udhyam find, right? Udhyam found that initially when their team went out and spoke to these micro entrepreneurs, and most of the team comes from corporate backgrounds, they didn't have much success. They didn't have much success in convincing these micro entrepreneurs that they were there to help them, that they were really interested in working with them, that they had solutions that could actually help these guys. So they did a very brave and wonderful thing, and I hope a lot of NGOs emulate them, because so many wonderful innovative projects, especially in the development sector, they come to nothing. They went back and embraced a design thinking culture. And a big part of that design thinking culture was storytelling and how to communicate with these micro entrepreneurs. And then after doing that, they went back again, and this time had wonderful success. In fact, you can see some of the stats there. We really covered the story and broke down the data so that everybody knew how successful this was. And working with a small pilot set of Vyaparis, you can see that this innovation of the LPG powered iron helped them iron more clothes. It helped their daily income go up by 200 to 300 rupees, and their monthly income by over 5,000, and their costs down by 2,000, which is, it's very significant So another example of how storytelling helped innovation be adopted. My last story, and I'm hoping that there are many students listening to these stories, and I want to bring it down to you because I think that really young people, you have so much potential for thinking out of the box, for thinking about new ideas, and storytelling can help you really take those ideas to people who can use them for wider adoption. So storytelling is not about something that only happens in organizations, and I've brought this small example to you from a project that was done by a couple of students. And what did they do? Their project was to figure out how to improve the rate of vaccination for the children of migrant laborers. Now, because they don't have a permanent address, migrant labor is not registered with your primary district healthcare center. So they will often not vaccinate their kids and keep to the schedule. And when you talk to them and say, why are you not vaccinating your children? They would say, oh, but they're healthy. There's nothing wrong with them. Why should I give them an injection? Now, this team came up with a very interesting innovation. They saw that most babies, doesn't matter how rich or poor the parents are, would have this bracelet with black beads tied around their wrists, right? And it was, as we all know, to ward off nazar or the evil eye. And it's done throughout India. And they proposed a tracker, a very simple tracker that mimics the bracelet and has slots, empty slots in it for beads. The number of beads in the bracelet is equal to the number of vaccinations the child needs to have. And every time the child goes to the clinic, the doctor or the nurse puts a bead into the empty slot. So this way the mother knows how many vaccinations are done and how many more need to be done. And the doctor, can just do this very simply. No follow-up calls are needed. It's right there in the child's hand and it's not going to get lost. And more interestingly, it's a story. So the initial research showed, of course, this was a project, it hasn't gone into implementation, but the initial research showed that if you told the mother that, this is a bracelet, and just as the black stone, the bracelet with black stone wards off nazar and wards off the evil eye, this bracelet wards off diseases. Now, just that reframing of the importance of vaccinations, the research showed that they were all quite open to accepting it and quite open to, their understanding of what the bracelet could do was just that much more enhanced. So these are my 3 little stories. I hope I have been able to impress upon you the importance of storytelling. That's all I have today. And I hope that all of you will go back and think about how to improve your storytelling so that you can take your ideas to where they should be, to the people who really need them. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Meeta. I'm sure everyone resonates with all that you shared. Storytelling is for sure a top-ranking skill in the century. Few folks are, of course, God-gifted storytellers, and few others are those who need to actually learn the skill. So I'm sure, different stages, different ages really need to imbibe this skill. Meanwhile, let's see that what we have in store is a quick poll. If the audience can quickly share their inputs on what best describes your current status. Would you be a student, or are you a working professional from 0 to 5 years experience, or somebody with 5+ years, or somebody with 10+ years, or an entrepreneur? And I guess, therefore, storytelling will then be woven into the questions ahead. Because at every stage, it's important, right? I mean, be it a student.
Yeah. That's why I sort of picked examples from, every type of milieu. because it's important
Right.
for everyone.
Right. So be it students again who are, preparing for their interviews or, their next role, or, be it working professionals again in terms of their teamwork and their client facing roles. Great. So we've got the poll results here, Meeta.
Yeah.
We've got 34.5% number of students out here.
Right.
We've got a good 31% people who are here with 10 plus years of experience. And of course, we've got number 3 ranking in terms of entrepreneurs.
Right.
I think that's wonderful. When did you realize that you had a storytelling knack in you? At what stage was that?
Oh, I don't know if I had the storytelling knack in me. So I think that one of the, perhaps what I would say happened the earliest was that I had this great love for devouring stories, right? And I think that is from childhood. So I was a voracious reader. I just loved storytelling and I like to write. So I think if you like to read and you like to write, then you are automatically at least you start to hone your storytelling skills because you're constantly being exposed to great storytellers.
Great. I think students, please take extra note while you're at it. Yes, make sure that you're reading a whole lot of books. And of course, I guess in the field of their specialization that they're working towards, or I think more about the best, or like which are the best storytellers that you would recommend, possibly those books that they should be reading.
So I don't want to be prescriptive. In fact, this is one of the questions I get asked a lot, give us a list of books. And I don't want to give you a list of books because really there are just so many wonderful books, but I'll give you a framework, right?
Your favorites.
Oh, too many to list. I wish I could turn this, around and show you my bookshelf. It's there's no room to, but I'm reading all the time. But so I'll give you a framework of how to think about it, right? Right, and it's not just books. There's now just so much to read on the internet. There are people to follow. I mean, even if you're reading on Twitter, to me, that's reading, that's storytelling. There are people who do exceptional storytelling on social media. So it's not about the traditional thing of only reading books, but divide up your reading. Definitely you must read about your field. Definitely you must read about the areas you are interested in. If you are a working professional, then following people who are in your field, who are experts in your field, all of that is part of storytelling and keeping up. But also find the time for, a little bit of non-structured sort of, okay, this is good for my job kind of reading. That's very, very important because, and I think especially in these times, honestly, when we're all under a certain amount of stress, right? I think find the time to listen to, hear. You don't only have to read. I mean, you can hear. Listening to a podcast is also storytelling.
True.
Listen to So listen to a few people who have nothing to do with your profession. That's the best advice I can give you. Go listen to a poet. Go listen to an artist. I mean, if you're not a poet or an artist. If you're a poet or an artist, then go listen to an entrepreneur. Because I think that the best storytellers are the ones that have very wide horizons.
Sure. So basically keep your ears and eyes open and you'll always find a good story around you.
Absolutely.
Great. So just a few, chats that have come in. Omar Wani would like to, on your story number 3, he said, brilliant example. Thank you, Meeta. Then we've got Vishal Bijlani, of course, again, thanking you for the wonderful presentation. And I guess what you just answered pretty much takes care of his question, which says that could you please suggest some references or tools that we can use to improve our storytelling skills? Is there anything in addition that you would like to cover to his question?
No. So like I said, read. So here's a very important point that I would like to make to Vishal. And that is that, of course, there are many storytelling courses if you just look at them, and I don't want to recommend anyone, but there are, if you do your own research, you will find. But here was something that I would recommend to you. The best framework for thinking about a story is really to think about your audience. Look, I mean, all of us are recipients of stories, right? So you're watching a Netflix show, you're listening to me, all of you are recipients and all of you understand when you are interested and when you get bored. So when you are crafting your story, just put yourself in your audience's shoes and ask yourself, what will they be interested in and what will they be bored with? I think that is a very big question that, if you just to add to, and I don't know if Vishal is, professional or a student, but I want to, for the professionals who are listening, I want to talk about this very interesting example given by somebody at IBM, where he said that before he has to make a presentation to his, whatever, general committee, or, IBM is a massive company. They are going to, it's quite hard. There are many levels to navigate within that company. And he said that whenever he has to make his quarterly presentation, he thinks about his quarterly presentation as if he's designing user experience. So he doesn't think about it like a presentation. Okay, what do I have to say? What do I have to get across? He says that, okay, I'm designing an experience. I'm thinking about an experience, almost like you're putting a dinner together for the person. And what do I know about them? What do I know about this manager of mine? Okay, he has a short attention span. Tuesdays are usually very busy for him. And he said, I'll factor all of those things into my storytelling. So that's the best advice I can give you, which is think about your audience when you're telling your story.
Fantastic. Great. We've got Gurvinder Singh Punj asking that should storytelling be associated with the brand vision? And if yes, how do we do that? Now that's I think that deserves another webinar altogether. But yes,
brand
take a try.
vision deserves a webinar. And Gurinder, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what is your vision? Let's break it down, right? Why do you articulate brand vision? You articulate brand vision, and brand vision is not something that gets shared with customers. It gets shared. Brand vision is articulated for the team. And why do you articulate brand vision? Because you want to inspire your team, right? You want to take them with you to wherever you are going. You want buy-in from your management and your leadership. And therefore the storytelling couldn't be more important. If your vision is just like a kind of, boring generic statement that's just printed on a piece of paper and, or goes onto your website, then it's such a missed opportunity.
How would you differentiate between storytelling as a buzzword nowadays and also the entire set of content being shared across different mediums? So when people are posting, for example, there's a mini story somewhere down the line, kind of lying in it.
Right.
So versus content and storytelling, I mean, are there any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, so one is, of course, that there's a huge information overload, right? So, yeah, I mean, we're all victims of the multiple WhatsApp groups on our phones. I mean, God, really. So we don't need that kind of storytelling. The storytelling that I'm referring to here is storytelling that helps you accomplish an objective, right? That's why we're talking about storytelling for innovators. If you're just putting out random content, or people are just sharing random content because they think that a high volume of content is needed, or a high value of sort of a high volume of content is needed, or a high volume of posting is needed, but they really don't know why they're doing it or who it's targeted at. I don't think that's storytelling, right? I mean, that's just content. Storytelling is something with an objective, with the objective of engaging its audience. And in our cases, in the business context, it's almost getting the audience to really buy into a very specific vision and move with you on that path.
Great. That answers the second part of his question in terms of how to do that, in terms of bringing the brand vision to life. Yeah. Next, we've got Omar Wani, who would like to know that how do you overcome storytelling blocks? Sometimes things just go blank. So any tips?
Yeah.
Do you write a lot, Meeta? I mean, are you possibly in the process of maybe turning into a full-fledged author as well? Any such plans?
Gosh, so I think we've had I've worked with we've had this plan to write a book. When I say we, I mean my ex-business partner and I, about the brands that were built in India, which the enduring brands built in India. And I think we've had that plan for the last 5 years now. Okay. So, Omar, please, you are not alone. I've had a book writing block for 5 years. We just haven't been able to get around to it. I think that, but yeah, even when say I'm writing for the hard copy, or I'm even thinking of ideas for the hard copy, which is my publication, of course, I run into terrible blocks. And again, there is no blanket sort of solution for this. I can share with you my solution. What I do is I just switch off everything that has to do with that context. So let's take the example of I'm writing a story for the hard copy. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know, this is not working. And this is just sounding terrible and cliched and not what I want. I will switch it off. I will turn off my computer and I will go, I don't know, watch Netflix, some random thing, right? Or play Scrabble on my phone, or which is something I like to do. Or, before this, I would just go take a walk. And, it is a bit scary because deadlines are looming and all of that. But for me, completely switching off and doing something totally random, which is not demanding of my brain, is the best way. Because then after a couple of hours, when I come back and I open it up and I look at it, I feel that, somewhere the answers start to emerge. So if you've been doing something for a while, very often the answers are locked away in your subconscious, and your stress tends to keep them buried, because you start to get stressed as deadlines come, as things don't go well. And then what you end up doing is you actually push the solution further and further down. So allow it to come up naturally.
So go inward and possibly detach and then come back fresh and then again tackle it.
Detach, completely. Just, go do something else. And then, when you come back, don't think that, you'll have the answer completely. Then maybe once you're back and you're fresh, take a small step. Write the heading of your story. Whatever, write a heading, write an introduction, and things will start to flow much easier.
Basically, take it step by step.
Yeah, exactly. Break it down into lots of little steps and go take a break. Don't push when it's not working.
Sure. Would you like to share about the hard copy and its progress? Because I do realize that it pretty much started out, I think, somewhere around the time that possibly COVID was also, sort of circulating in the world, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much the same time. So how has it really kind of impacted your plans? It's been 6 to 7 months now.
Yes.
So any insights on that? Because that will also help, I think, fellow entrepreneurs draw some inspiration from the way you are, tackling your new project.
Yes, sure. So I think that, we launched, I would say, we launched in December. Our publishing cycle really started from January. So I would say that, we finished 6 months end of June. And, in our case, we've just been fortunate because, COVID has, like all digital businesses, actually proven to be an accelerator for us. So we are, number one, we are able to work from home without, any problems whatsoever. Of course, we can't now meet the people we interview and talk to. We have to do it remotely. And earlier we would be meeting for a coffee, and that, it's so much nicer that way, but it's a small price to pay. What we find is actually that the numbers that we were supposed to hit by the end of the year, we've actually hit them in 6 months. And it's not so much what we are doing right, but the fact that people now actually have more time to consume digital content. That's one, right? So I would say that almost all content players are seeing this sharp hike. And secondly, people are now ready to engage with ideas around innovation and how to think differently. And, let me learn, just like, so many people in your audience have asked, give us the tools. How do we do this? There's very much that mindset prevalent amongst professionals right now, right? Everyone is saying, entrepreneurs, professionals are saying, okay, how do we do this? How do we make it better? Can we think out of the box? And those are the stories that hard copy is telling. Those are the stories that hard copy is uncovering. And, these are not examples from typically what's happened up to now is that if you wanted to look at examples of innovation and design, you were only looking at Western examples, right? And with all respect to them, there is enough innovation happening in India. It's just that it's not been, the stories haven't been told. So that's what we're aiming to do. And the atmosphere is, it's been great for us. So I can't complain on the work front at all.
Sure. Great, great. So how big is the team at the hard copy, and how often do you plan to publish, let's say, X number of articles and stories
Right.
across a month?
Yeah, so the team at Hardcopy is really small. We're 5 people, but we have a network of, sort of freelance writers.
Mm-hmm.
And we have now a lot of the community that wants to write for us as well, which is great. We welcome that. We
Mm-hmm.
publish a newsletter every Sunday morning, which is basically a summary of what we've published that week.
Okay.
So that is, it's a weekly publishing cycle. Every Sunday morning at 9 a.m., you will get a newsletter which has got original content from the hard copy, as well as summaries of global stories that we've liked, where we just sum them up from you and give you a link, and in case you want to read them further. But of course, the thing that we're most excited about that week is what we've published about design. We publish case studies. So whatever the award-winning apps are, Indian apps are, we drill deep down into how they were done, what was the thought process, and we try not to do surface stuff. We hope that
Mm-hmm.
if you're reading it, it will help you in
Sure.
your work and in your life.
Sure. Thank you. So people can find the hard copy online at thehardcopy.co. Am I right?
That's right. The hard copy.
And so in case there are any freelance writers in our audience right now, I mean, they can also reach out to you. Correct?
Absolutely. If they have an interest in design and innovation,
Mm-hmm.
be happy to hear from them.
Sure. We've got Ria asking, once you craft a story, what are the ways you can test the story and see how you can tweak it?
Great question, Ria, really, because I think that's such an important thing. And the way to do it is to gather a bunch of your friends. And when I say friends, try to pick people who are not like you. So, maybe, pick classmates, or pick colleagues, or pick just 2 or 3 people, test your story on them. And I'll tell you, you don't even need to wait for their reaction. As you tell the story, right, you yourself will understand that, hey, you know what, I'm not telling it right. And you'll be able to pick up on their body language. You'll be able to look at their eyes, and you'll know when their interest is flagging and when they're interested. So it's not as if you'll have to wait for them to say, hey, it was great, or hey, it was terrible. Just by observing audience reactions, you will be able to make your story much better. So I really urge all of you to do that, because it's the best way to hone your storytelling skills.
Great. Thank you. We've got Karan Jaipal, who would like to thank you for this great webinar. And he would like to know about a writer's workshop where people showcase their piece.
Right.
And that could help them with storytelling. So I think it's more of a request for a second session coming up, but more in the form of a writing workshop. Yes, Karan, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, just to tell Karan that, we've had this request a lot. So we are thinking about it. Yeah, we really have had this request a lot, because again, the Indian context is so different that you can't go do a American story writing course. It's yeah. Well, we're thinking about it, Karan. Thank you.
Vocal for local in a way.
Yeah, it's really it's just a persistent request, So
right.
Yeah, we are thinking about it.
Sure. So we've got Abhishek Kulkarni, who would like to know that how can storytelling help overcome the mindset of jugaad? I guess, again, there's always this Indian word that we famously use, which is jugaad. And now we're, of course, trying to, possibly help people understand that, okay, time to move on from jugaad to innovation. But yes, how would you treat this question?
Yeah, I think that's a very good and fundamental question, right? But I would reframe it, Abhishek. I would say that, as Priya said, we want to tell people that Indians are great at jugaad. There's nothing wrong with being great at jugaad. But the problem that I have is that all we're known to be good at is jugaad. See, that's my problem. So the story I want to tell the world is that, of course, we're good at jugaad. You put us in a tight spot, we will find our way out of it somehow, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that we are also good at innovations that endure, that are changing the lives of millions of people, uh, that are doing things for the very first time in India that have never been done anywhere else. I mean, we have so many examples. Let's take the payment stack. Uh, that's not jugaad, right? Let's take just so many innovations that have happened in India. Those are not jugaad because they are, right from the Jaipur foot. They have endured and helped generations of Indians. So I want to I want to do storytelling that sort of amplifies the innovation and plays down the jugaad, but not what do I say? Pretends that the jugaad is not there, because the jugaad is there very much.
Intrinsic part of our personalities.
It is, and why be ashamed of it? I love it.
True.
But I know that if I'm in a bind, I'll turn to an Indian. They'll figure out something.
Great. Yeah. So we've got another question. Says that should storytelling always be descriptive or having a visualized presentation? I believe it should be a combo, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, ideally it should be a combo. So if you're talking about, can I just ask whoever asked this question, is this in a business context that you're asking, say in terms of a presentation?
Can I request the person who's asked the question to quickly mention that in the chat mode or in the Q&A mode? We'll take it in a generic way till then, I guess, Meeta.
Yeah, okay. So I think that the reason I was asking was because one of the other big mistakes that we tend to do is, and this is universal, is that we tend to write a lot of things on slides, and then we tend to stand in front of our slides and read them out. And honestly, your audience is literate, right? So they can read the slide anyway. So why are you there if you're just there to read out the slide? So, that is not storytelling. Visuals are fantastic if they are, you've got access to visuals that totally illustrate the point that you're making. So I think that both words and visuals are aids to your storytelling, but the final storytelling has to be done by you, and that final storytelling should be your voice, right? It shouldn't be so much words. If you're talking about a presentation, words on slides or the visuals on slides, they can be compelling, but finally people are listening to you.
Sure. I think that's fantastic in terms of, yes, truly it's the voice, the person, and of course it all needs to come in from the heart, and that's how it connects with the person who's also the recipient of the story as well.
Correct. Because people will, so there's another very famous quote by Maya Angelou, and she says that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So what's important is what people feel when they walk away from the story, and they will, that feeling only you can evoke in them.
Right. So we've got a lot of questions pouring in, but I think I'm going to just take this as the last one. And I'll request everybody in the audience to please connect with Meeta. And of course, do write into me as well. I can also help you have those questions answered offline. So this is the one from Aruna. She says, some stories sell well and become viral and some don't. It is difficult to understand what really sells today. So concept-wise, it might be similar. However, some stories sell well compared to others. So she wants to understand what is it that one thing that one needs to pay attention to.
Yeah. So, again, Aruna, this is something that, when I used to have my studio, we used to actually groan when people used to, because there had come a time when people used to say, I want something and I want it to be viral. So, and we would say, yeah, like, would you like the flu then? So it's not even a joke you can make today, but I'm talking pre-COVID times. So see, what becomes viral and what doesn't is not in your control. It really isn't. And anybody who tells you that they produce viral stories on demand is just lying and talking rubbish. So what can you do as a storyteller to make sure that your story is amplified, right? And again, it is in the understanding of your audience. So like you said, many stories are told with the same concepts. It's the same idea, but some get widely shared and become viral and some don't. And that is because of an understanding of two things, the medium and the audience. So let's just say if you're on social media, right? What becomes viral on Twitter versus what becomes viral on Instagram, they're two different mediums and your stories demand different treatments on them. The Twitter audience is different to your Instagram audience, is different to your Facebook audience, is different to your Reddit audience. So I think you have to have a very good understanding of the channel, and you have to have a very good understanding of the audience. And those are and you have to tell a story that appeals to them. And only then are you maximizing your chances of something becoming viral.
Great. Thanks, Meeta. So for more questions, to reach out to us offline on LinkedIn. A round of thanks to our participants for joining us today, and special thanks to our guest speaker, Ms. Meeta Malhotra, for her time and the value-add takeaways from her journey. We encourage you to connect with us via our social channels to know more about the MIT ID Innovation Program and our upcoming online courses. I'd like to invite you all to our next webinar on Friday, 10th July 2020. Our guest speaker is Mr. Kapil Rathi, President of Jungly Games, who will be speaking about innovations in the gaming ecosystem fueling industry growth. So please register in case you haven't yet. For those interested in enrolling for the one-year course, we have last few seats left for the second cohort of this prestigious program that will fast-track your career path. So log on to www.mitidinnovation.com to kickstart your innovation journey with a diverse set of co-innovators. Thank you once again, Meeta. It was lovely speaking with you. And I, of course, from the inputs on the chat mode as well, I'm sure the audience enjoyed as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And everyone,
good luck with your storytelling, everyone who's here.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone stay connected, stay safe, and please keep innovating every day.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.